Good evening, guys. Today we have a match that I had in the I-153P Chaika. This is a premium aircraft that you can unlock, well, you can purchase in the Rush Tech Tree, and this was one that I was very eager to take out. Obviously, with the realshatter changes a while ago, I've obviously wanted to take a look at some planes which had a little bit of a harsh review because of their weaponry, obviously being mainly cannons in this case. And I really wanted to see if the Cannon Chaika had a buff. And, well, let's just put it this way, it blooming has. So the Cannon Chaika I reviewed about 3 years ago, I think. 4 years ago. And it was an aircraft that I'd always wanted to get my hands on. It's an I-153, which is a terror at low tier. And it's got 20mm Shavak. Now, back when I first got it, I believe it still had the early 20mm belts, but I never got the chance to review it before they changed it. And it is an interesting one because now it has what we call the early Shavak belts, which is just HEF and Tracer. There's no in between. So I use the Air Targets belt to just help it out a little bit. And obviously with having a Tracer, it's just useful anyway. You can run Stealth, which is just pure HE, but I prefer having a Tracer because the Tracer actually has a little bit of AP quality. Not much, but it's something, I guess. And of course, being a Chaika, we do have access to bombs. We also have access to rockets, whether that be AP, well, semi-armor piercing rockets or high explosive rockets. And then, of course, we have 450kg bombs, which is always nice to have in this regard. But the real metric of having a Chaika with cannons is the fact that this thing becomes even more effective in its main role, which is dogfighting. It's not very fast, being a biplane. It's going to run into a lot of aircraft that just completely outdo it in the speed and climb department, and even the roll rate department. But the simple fact of the matter is, if someone's dumb enough and you can exploit a situation that's happening by coming in from above and boom and zooming, you can terrorize entire teams with this thing. It is insanely fun now. And I'll be honest, I'm glad I took this thing out. So, I'm going to jump us ahead to the replay, and I'll see you all shortly. And welcome to the match. As you can tell, we're a few minutes ahead, and we've found ourselves a swarm. This is where the Cannon Chaika really does well. If the P-51 to the left, because I think he runs away, if he'd have stuck around, he'd have been dead too. Yeah, this just goes to show how ridiculous this thing can be. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to save the IL-2, because obviously it's taken me 6.5 minutes to get over to this side of the match. That is one unfortunate part about the Cannon Chaika. It is slow. But, well, it is an interesting one. So first up, P40. Short burst, he's now dead. Next one. Because I don't re-engage him because I know he's dead. I'm going to go for Pepe Shock 89. Now, the lead on this plane, because the guns are mounted higher than your typical wing-mounted, is a little bit more complicated to get used to. So I take off his wingtip. There goes the first P40. There goes that P40. And now I can effortlessly swing this little fella around. He's trying to bring his nose up. And for his efforts, he eats more 20mm to the face and dies. That's 3 kills in less than a minute. Because this thing just turns that well and can deal with swarms like that very effectively. But obviously this is where the unfortunate part about the Cannon Chaika comes into play, which is its top speed. Now obviously we've done a few sharp turns, we've come down from altitude to obviously do our thing. But you'll notice the speed is extremely low. That is the main drawback. And that's what people are going to use against you. You'll see later on there's a P-51C who uses that exact advantage. And there isn't really a lot you can do about it, and that's being brutally honest. raw turn rate can get you far, but when you're being boom and zoomed by a plane that's 200 to nearly 300 miles per hour faster than you in level flight, in some situations, because people will be obviously coming from dives and things like that, and they'll be going over 500. It is where you have to go and look at like defensive flying, which is what you'll have to learn if you buy this aircraft. And that is something you'll eventually get used to, but regardless, it's still something to consider. So the high explosive rockets can kill things like armoured cars, but as you'll see, you have to land them very, very close to the target. I'm not even, like, in some cases I'm actually hitting them and it is killing them, but in some cases I'm having to land a rocket literally right next to the target in order to kill it. But it's just something, you know, and plus I need the weight off anyway, so it's something to just have in general. So this is where the tracer round obviously comes into play, because as I say, it is obviously a AP technically, like it functions like a very crap armor piercing round, but it's very useful because the HE rounds don't really kill light vehicles too well. Like they do a little bit now, because they made a couple of changes to high explosive and the way it works on AI ground targets, but it's still recommended to have at least an AP focused round in your belt if you're going for ground pounding like I was then. And it is something to just consider, because at the end of the day, it's good to have a vehicle that isn't just surely focused on killing aircraft, because at the end of the day we have to deal with runway campers, we have to deal with people who space climb, we have to do all these things. And that's why I prefer having AP in my belt, or at least something that functions like an AP belt to some extent, just so I can guarantee me actually doing something in the match. So I've jumped us a little bit ahead using the replay functions there, because as I say, this thing is very, very slow. And I found a couple more armoured cars to destroy, which always is handy because it bleeds the tickets. Because we are on the side of the map where we are stuck with tanks and armoured cars to deal with. They have it easy with just mainly artillery and anti-aircraft guns. But then they also have landing craft to deal with, but at least with landing craft you can kill those with machine guns. You can't kill medium tanks with 20mm Shabak. Well, these belts anyway, because this has the early belt as I mentioned. But it just puts into perspective like how it can be used and how this plane can be used offensively but also defensively. And speaking of defensively, we have this P-51. So this is the P-51 I was mentioning earlier, the P-51C. And he's already on, I think, 3 or 4 kills. No, he's on 4 kills at the moment, I believe. No, he's on an ace, I've just remembered now. And he is determined to add to that tally. But fortunately, the Cannon Chaika is very good at making people overcommit. Now, luckily, he knows to keep his speed on after he does a maneuver. So obviously, I'm looking around frantically because I don't know where he's gone. But as you'll see there, the P-51 that ran away earlier on, he's on his way too. Now, one important thing to note is I'm running the Chaika at the minute on minimum fuel. So I'm actually getting quite close to bingo fuel. And I end up going back to my airfield and landing with just 20 seconds left of fuel. That is the danger about running this thing on minimum fuel, but you need the extra performance, you need the extra climb, you need the extra speed, and it's just very important to do. So here comes the P-51 from earlier. Obviously I'm dodging the P-51C whilst I'm at it, but the Allison P-51 makes the mistake of committing to the turn. And that's where the 20mm just butcher him for that mistake. But obviously our P-51C here, he's keeping his speed up, he's using the vertical, he's flying it pretty well. And obviously I can't really touch him because, as I said, he's got the speed. I underlead there, which could have potentially been a kill shot, or at least a crippling shot. And obviously with me running low on fuel, this is something to consider. But the P-51 is also running pretty low on ammo, and he knows it. But obviously my only remaining teammate is that Kai-44, who is Bomber Zombie. Which, we all hate Bomber Zombies, but unfortunately when you're stuck with one, and you're being boom and zoomed by an aircraft that your teammate's aircraft can comfortably deal with, there isn't a huge amount of things that I can do. So, the P-51, obviously it doesn't show that he's out of ammunition, but he is pretty much out of ammunition at this point. So, he's now going to make his way back to base. I'm going to make my way back to my base, but of course, I still have about a few minutes left of fuel, and I have around 50 rounds left in the cannon. So once again, ignoring the annoying replay noise, I'm going to jump us ahead a little bit more, because there's one final kill that we're going to get in this match, which ironically is what the Bomber Zombie was going for this entire time. So, yeah. This is obviously something where people would say, oh, you're stealing his kill. He ran out of ammo trying, and the plane was still combat viable. Like, he was flying that thing with no tail control. So, that's fair game. Plus, he still got the assist, so that is something. But this is where I'm going to have to jump us ahead even more using the annoying replay sound. But it just puts into perspective, like, even though we was in a bad situation, the fact that we could still go ahead and just maneuver out the way and just use our situational awareness to keep ourselves alive, we managed to turn the 2v1 into a 1v1 situation, and it was just very useful for us to have. But obviously there's still a Ju-88 left on the enemy team, which the Kai-44 is going to, of course, focus on, because bomber zombies. And this is where I loaded up the Chaika with some small bombs, and I'm now going to attempt to kill some tanks. And unfortunately this doesn't go well because I overlead with the bombs, but still, we still managed to take out, I believe, one tank. So you'll see there, I overled, like they're 100 kilos, they're not, they're 50s, so that's something to consider if you are going to strap bombs on. This is an aircraft that isn't, shall we say, a CAS aircraft. It's okay at CAS, but it's nothing spectacular. But as you saw there, the 50-kilogram bomb was right behind the tank, and it didn't kill it. You have to basically make them drive over it like it's a mine in order for them to kill it. So I dropped my last bomb, and the tank, luckily, drives right over it, and that tank is gone. We only killed one tank with the 4 bombs, but this is where our extra ticket advantage has just spawned in. A bunch of vehicles have just spawned in, and that's what I'm heading towards now. But of course, strafing trucks isn't exactly interesting, so I'm just going to leave it here. But I really hope you enjoyed this match, and really got to see how useful the cannons are on this thing now. Obviously, you won't be killing things like medium tanks with the cannons, you won't be one-shotting every plane every time, but the simple fact of the matter is if you're looking for something fun, this is definitely the vehicle to go for if you're looking for something in Russia for a bit of fun. Another option would obviously be the Russian Hurricane due to the guns it gets and obviously the increased flight performance that it gets over a regular Hurricane. So that is another avenue to approach. But like I say, if you're looking for something with a little bit of fun, this is definitely something for it. But anyway, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. I really hope you enjoyed seeing the Cannon Chaika in action, and maybe it's on your shopping list, I don't know. But I will see you all on the next one.